Dust erupts from the top of the outer wall as something enormous strikes it from the other side. The ground trembles violently. Nobody knows what made the impact. A second blow splits the stone like brittle glass. People below stare upward in silence, waiting for an explanation that never comes. Then a gigantic shape rises beyond the broken rim. Its height dwarfs the wall that protected humanity for generations. The wall explodes outward. Stone blocks crash through nearby homes as the first breach opens to the outside world. People run in every direction, screaming for gates that are already sealed. Something enormous begins stepping through the breach. More shapes appear behind the first one. Their movements are slow but unstoppable. Cannons fire from rooftops. The explosions barely slow the advancing giants. The wounded creatures regenerate before the smoke clears. Soldiers realize their weapons mean almost nothing. A building collapses nearby. The street becomes a maze of rubble and fire. A friend disappears in the crowd during the chaos. The young man searches desperately but sees only strangers running. Someone shouts that the chapel doors are still open. Survivors sprint toward the only stone structure left standing. The doors slam shut seconds after he enters. Outside, the city screams continue. Through a shattered window he sees one of the giants walking between buildings. Its footsteps shake dust from the chapel ceiling. The creature turns its head slowly toward the chapel. Someone inside begins praying loudly. The wall behind the altar suddenly collapses inward. A massive hand tears through stone. Panic erupts. Survivors rush toward the back exit as the giant reaches inside. Outside, the entire district is burning. The wall that once protected them is now a smoking crater. The survivors scatter into ruined alleys. Nobody has a plan anymore. From the smoke, more giants enter the city through the destroyed wall. The invasion has only just begun. By morning, the outer district is lost. The survivors flee deeper inside the remaining walls, carrying the first proof that the monsters were never gone. 2 years later, the abandoned district still smolders beyond the sealed gate. Food shortages spread through the inner city as refugees flood every street. Military commanders announce a desperate plan. The outer district must be reclaimed before the city starves. New recruits gather in silence while engineers roll out unfamiliar equipment designed for fighting giants. The scarred young man tightens the straps on his mobility harness. He volunteered the moment the mission was announced. Night falls before the operation begins. The convoy prepares to cross the sealed gate for the first time since the invasion. Engines start quietly. Every soldier has been ordered to make as little noise as possible. The gates open slowly. Beyond them lies the dead city. The convoy enters the abandoned district. Entire streets remain frozen exactly where people left them. Stray animals wander through empty roads. For a moment, the city almost looks peaceful. A distant noise stops the entire convoy. Soldiers freeze instantly. Somewhere inside a nearby building, something is crying. The sound resembles a baby. No one understands how that could be possible. The crying echoes through the upper floors. The sound grows louder with every step. Something wet drops from the ceiling onto the floor beside them. They look upward, and freeze. A massive shape crouches on the floor above, chewing slowly. The crying wasn't a baby. It was something else entirely. The creature drops through the floor. The building shakes violently. The soldiers outside hear the crash. Silence instantly disappears. Movement begins across the dark rooftops. The giants are waking up. The squad runs back toward the convoy. The noise has already spread through the ruins. A gigantic hand slams down onto the street beside them. Soldiers scatter as towering figures emerge between buildings. The convoy commander suddenly drives away with the explosives. Panic spreads instantly. Without the explosives, the mission collapses before it begins. The remaining soldiers retreat toward an abandoned apartment block for cover. Just before the giants reach them, two figures descend from the rooftops with blinding speed. Metal cables fire from their harnesses. They swing through the air like projectiles. One precise strike drops the first giant instantly. Another giant collapses seconds later. The soldiers stare in disbelief. The tall soldier with the metal jaw plate lands beside the squad. His blades drip with steam. The woman with the braided hair lands beside him without a word. The scarred young man stares at her, recognizing someone he thought died years ago. She does not react. Her attention remains fixed on the approaching giants. Another giant steps around the corner. The fight begins again. Blades flash through the air as soldiers attempt their first real combat. The maneuver works, but barely. Most recruits struggle to control the gear. A giant grabs one of the soldiers and disappears into the smoke. The battle spreads across the district. The mission has turned into pure survival. And in the middle of the chaos, the scarred young man finally launches his first attack. The attack lands, but the impact throws him violently off balance. His cable snaps loose and sends him spiraling across the street. He slams onto a rooftop and rolls toward the edge. The giant below turns its head upward. Another soldier fires a cable and drags him away seconds before the creature reaches the roof. Across the street, a giant catches one of the recruits midair. The squad hears the scream before the body disappears. The scarred young man forces himself upright. His leg brace is bent but still holding. He launches again, this time aiming higher toward the giant's neck. The blade connects. Steam erupts as the creature collapses onto the street. For the first time, the recruits realize the giants can actually be killed. But another giant rises behind them, far larger than the rest. The squad splits apart as the giant charges through the market ruins. The thin man with glasses loses control of his cables and crashes into a broken balcony. The giant reaches toward him through the broken wall. Before it can grab him, the braided woman slices across the giant's arm midair. The giant stumbles backward, smashing through another building. But behind it, another giant grabs the scarred young man out of the air. His blades fall from his hands as the creature lifts him toward its mouth. The braided woman tries to intercept, but she is too far away. The giant bites down. The scarred young man disappears inside its jaws. The squad freezes in shock. The battle around them suddenly feels distant. Inside the giant's stomach, darkness surrounds the young man. The air burns his lungs. He reaches for something sharp, but finds nothing. Outside, the squad retreats to the rooftops. They believe he is already dead. The thin man with glasses struggles to speak as he explains what happened. The braided woman says nothing. She simply looks down at the giant that swallowed him. Then the giant suddenly jerks violently. Its body begins tearing apart from the inside. The creature collapses onto the street with a thunderous crash. Steam pours into the sky as something enormous rises from the corpse. Another giant stands there now, formed from the same body. But this one immediately turns and attacks the others. The surviving soldiers stare in disbelief as the new giant destroys the rest. One after another, the giants fall. The final giant collapses. Silence returns to the ruined district. The mysterious giant slowly turns toward the surviving soldiers. It begins walking directly toward them. The soldiers prepare to attack, unsure what they are facing. But the braided woman lowers her blades. She steps forward alone toward the creature. The giant suddenly stops moving. Steam begins pouring from its neck as if something inside is trying to escape. The giant collapses forward onto the street, shaking the entire block. Steam floods the ruins as its body begins dissolving. A human figure slides out from the torn opening at the back of its neck. The soldiers rush forward in disbelief. The body on the ground is still breathing. The braided woman kneels beside the body and turns it over slowly. It is the scarred young man. The same soldier everyone believed had been eaten minutes earlier. The thin man with glasses stumbles backward in shock. No one has ever seen a human emerge from a giant. The tall soldier with the metal jaw plate grabs the young man's collar and lifts him upright. The young man opens his eyes slowly, confused by the circle of soldiers around him. He looks down at his leg brace and freezes. The metal frame is twisted, but his leg beneath it is completely healed.